there are wide receivers, there are legends, and then there was Megatron. At 6'5", 237 pounds, Calvin Johnson wasn't just big, he wasn't just fast, he was both. Freakishly, unnaturally both. With the body of a tight end, the speed of a sprinter, and the leaping ability of a high jumper, Johnson looked like a created player in Madden. Except he was real. He terrified defenses. He shattered records. He did things no other wide receiver in NFL history had done before. And then, just when it seemed like he was headed for the all-time great conversation, he walked away. So how good was Calvin Johnson actually? To find out, we need to go back. Way back, before the nickname, before the Lions, before the NFL draft, back to where the monster was built. Calvin Johnson Jr. was born in Noonan, Georgia. The son of a railroad yard conductor and a public school administrator, Johnson was raised in a structured, hard-working household. There were no silver spoons, no viral highlight tapes, just discipline, focus, and raw, unfiltered talent. And even as a kid, Calvin wasn't like the others. By the time he entered high school, he stood 6 feet 4 inches, taller than most of his coaches. But he wasn't clumsy, he wasn't slow, he moved like a track star with the balance of a ballerina and the force of a freight train. He wasn't just dominating, he was different. He could high point a ball like a power forward. He could burn cornerbacks like a slot guy. And by the end of his senior season, he was one of the top recruits in the country. Rivals ranked him the #1 wide receiver prospect in the nation. Offers came from every powerhouse: Miami, Georgia, Auburn, Florida State. But Johnson, ever the thinker, chose a more unorthodox path. He committed to Georgia Tech, a school better known for engineers than elite football, because he valued education and wanted to play close to home. But the moment he stepped on the field in Atlanta, Calvin Johnson turned academics into afterthoughts. At Georgia Tech, Johnson played in a run-heavy, option-style offense. Most receivers vanish in that system, but not Calvin. As a true freshman, he led the team in every receiving category. By year 2, he was already a star, and by his junior season, he was the most dominant receiver in college football, winning the Biletnikoff Award and scoring 15 touchdowns, all while being double-covered on nearly every snap. Even his incompletions were highlight-worthy. Quarterbacks were told, if he's even kind of open, throw it. He had hands like magnets, body control like a gymnast, and a catch radius the size of a garage door. By the time he declared for the NFL draft, scouts were drooling. One of them said, if we could build a wide receiver in a lab, it would look like Calvin Johnson. And then came the combine. He measured in at 6 feet 5 inches, 237 pounds. Already absurd. Then he ran a 4.35 40-yard dash, then posted a 42.5-inch vertical, then a 6.66 three-cone drill. These weren't wide receiver numbers. These were numbers no human his size had ever posted. It broke the matrix. That's when the nickname stuck, Megatron. In the 2007 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions, a franchise starving for a hero, took Calvin Johnson with the #2 overall pick. And in a city desperate for something, anything to believe in, Megatron arrived. His rookie season was just a glimpse. He posted over 750 yards and 4 touchdowns on just 48 catches, on a team that didn't know how to use him, with quarterbacks who struggled to stay upright, but the flashes were terrifying. The deep balls, the contested catches, the speed after the catch, it was all there. Then came 2008, the year the Lions went 0-16, the first winless season in NFL history. Quarterbacks rotated in and out like broken vending machines. The team was in free fall, and yet Calvin Johnson had 1,331 yards and led the NFL with 12 touchdowns. On the worst team in football, Megatron was still the most dangerous player on the field. Everyone knew the ball was going to him. They still couldn't stop it. In 2009, things began to change. The Lions drafted quarterback Matthew Stafford, a big-armed, fearless gunslinger from Georgia. Instantly, fans imagined the future. Stafford to Johnson. Bombs for days. It took time. Stafford was injured for much of his first 2 seasons, but even with backups throwing him the ball, Johnson continued to shine. In 2010, he posted 1,120 yards and 12 touchdowns, again, while catching passes from multiple backup QBs. But 2011, that's when the NFL got the full version of the nightmare. Stafford played a full season, Johnson stayed healthy, and together, they lit up the league. Calvin had 96 catches, 1,681 yards, and 16 touchdowns. The Lions went 10-6 and made the playoffs for the first time in over a decade. It was official. Calvin Johnson was the best wide receiver in the NFL, and And then 2012 happened. Despite facing double coverage on nearly every play, Calvin Johnson caught 122 passes for 1,964 yards, the most in a single season in NFL history. He broke Jerry Rice's record on a team that finished 4-12, with no running game, no second receiving threat, and all the pressure on him. He had 8 straight 100-yard games. He was unstoppable. The only thing missing? Touchdowns. Defenses were triple teaming him inside the red zone. He still had 5 scores, but the lack of them didn't matter. The dominance was obvious. In 2013, he had another 1,492 yards and 12 touchdowns in just 14 games. In 2014, over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns in a down year. In 2015, his final season, he posted 1,214 yards and 9 touchdowns. Still elite, still dominant, and then he retired. At just 30 years old, Megatron walked away from the game. No decline, no drama, no drawn-out fade, just a man who'd given his body everything and was ready to take it back. He'd played through back pain, ankle sprains, dislocated fingers, torn ligaments, and concussions. He admitted to taking painkillers regularly just to play, and he was tired, but it wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He had quietly asked the Lions to trade him. He wanted to compete, to win. They refused. And when he retired, the Lions forced him to repay over $1 million from his signing bonus. For years, he distanced himself from the franchise, refusing to attend events or wear team gear. The pain wasn't just in his legs, it was in his heart. He said, "I just didn't feel like the Lions were committed to winning." It was more than disappointment, it was betrayal. And yet, despite all that, he was still one of the greatest to ever play. In just 9 seasons, Calvin Johnson posted over 11,600 yards, 83 touchdowns, and averaged 86.1 receiving yards per game. Still the highest in NFL history. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, and a member of the NFL's All-Decade team. He did all of that in just 135 games. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2021. In his first year of eligibility, because impact matters, and Calvin Johnson's impact was undeniable. He wasn't just fast, he wasn't just strong, he was a matchup nightmare, a strategic problem, a defensive impossibility. He forced entire schemes to adjust. Double coverage didn't work, triple coverage didn't always work either. Corners couldn't press him, safeties couldn't contain him, linebackers couldn't keep up. And off the field, he was humble, quiet, disciplined, the kind of player you'd want your kid to emulate. So how good was Calvin Johnson actually? Let's make it plain. Was he the best statistical receiver ever? No, Jerry Rice still owns that title. Was he the most accomplished? No, he didn't win a Super Bowl, didn't play long enough to climb the all-time lists. But was he the most unstoppable wide receiver to ever walk onto an NFL field? Absolutely. He was the only receiver in history who broke the rules of the position. He didn't just play the game, he broke it. And when he walked away, the league felt his absence instantly. He wasn't replaced, he wasn't replicated, he was simply missed. He left on his own terms, healthy, respected, and immortalized. He was good enough to redefine the wide receiver position, good enough to break records with a broken body, good enough to dominate in the most dysfunctional environment in football, and good enough to retire with nothing left to prove. Except that greatness doesn't need longevity, it just needs truth. And Calvin Johnson, he was the truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more in-depth NFL content. Thanks for watching.